the misconceptions we have? What are some of the facts about planning our retirement? And as usual, for our practical sessions, we normally bring people who are into that field to give us hands-on information as well as attend to our questions as well. So for today, we have Mimi Anane Apia, who will be taking us through what we need to take into consideration as we plan for our retirement. The program lineup for today, as usual, we allow 5 minutes for check-ins. So exactly 6:05 we started. We'll use the next 5 minutes for introduction of our speaker. Then at 6:10, we jump straight into the discussions, which will take 30 minutes. Then we allow 5 minutes for Q&A session. Then we'll take closing remarks both from the speaker as well. We are hoping to close today's meeting by 6:50. In case of any delay, we should be off by 7 p.m. So let me have the honor to introduce our guest for today, Mimi Anane Apia, but we mostly call her Mimi. She's an ambitious and impact-driven individual who finds fulfillment in adding value to the lives of individuals through coaching, training, mentoring, and advice, and especially in area of personal finance management and personal development. She believes that with the right mindset, knowledge, skills, and habits, every individual can strive. Mimi has a BSc in banking and finance and an MBA. Additionally, she's a financial coach, certified financial education instructor, personal development advocate, and women empowerment advocate. She's the founder of Money Convos and jointly manage the investment firm, all on social media as well. Currently, she works as lead investor education and advisory department at Access Pension Trust. Welcome, Mimi.
Thank you, Jemima. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. So, Mimi, you take it up from here.
Okay. So do I share my slides or you do it from your end?
Oh, you can take control of the screen now.
Okay, sure. Good evening, everyone. I hope you are doing well. Today we are going to just talk briefly about retirement planning. The time is short. I would have thrown a few questions to you, but let's see how it goes. And yes, as Jemima rightly said, my name is Mimi, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to be on this platform to talk about retirement planning. The last time I came here, I was supporting my partner, that's Sayram. So I'm glad to be here to also be giving you some information, and I trust that this would help you plan your retirement better. We are basically going to talk about what retirement is, our retirement goals, the retirement challenge, how much really is enough, sources of retirement income, the income shortfall, how to bridge the income gap, and then other considerations. So basically, one day we'll all retire. Sometimes people don't like to accept this. I mean, we want to work till we drop dead. But the thing is that if God should bless you with long life, definitely, one day you're going to retire because you may not be able to work for so long. Not because you don't like money and you are lazy, but it's just your body that's telling you that it's time to rest. However, this is how I choose to see retirement as. Retirement basically is a period where you cease to work for money. So I see retirement as a period where it's not necessarily that you are not working. You may have slowed down, you may have one or two things you are doing, but the main purpose is not for money, maybe to just occupy you as a hobby. If money comes out of it, fine. And so that is how I choose to see retirement, because a lot of the time when you talk about retirement, people are not interested because it's like coming home to do nothing and staring at the ceiling. No, it's a period where you cease to work for money. It's also a period that should mark, it should mark a period of sober reflection. You've been working all these years. You are at the latter stage in your life. It's a good time to sit down to just think through your life, enjoy your life. Now you have to wake up at 5. I wake up at 5, prepare my kids for school before I also think about my own work, and it's just going on and on and on, and honestly it's tiring. So this is a time to enjoy life. And why not give back to society? It could be through your resources, like money or your knowledge or your time. It's also a time for pursuing unfinished goals. So, for example, let me use Jemima. Let's assume Jemima loves to teach, but right now she has kids, she has to pay school fees, or she has to do one or two things. So she cannot afford to go that line. Once she goes on retirement, she can decide to pursue those goals that she couldn't have pursued when she was actively working. The thing about retirement, like any stage in life, is that it has its opportunities and challenges. Like you have noticed, there's free time to do what you love to do. However, it also comes with its own challenges. And to prepare adequately, there's a need for us to anticipate the events of our life at retirement and the financial implications. Now, I'm sure by this time you know that scarcity of resources requires that workers put in place a deliberate plan to achieve their desired retirement lifestyle. If you look at your parents and their contemporaries, you realize that a good retirement does not just come. It's something that you actively have to work towards. This is a video, but I'll just skip it. Okay, so what are the challenges that I was talking about? Because I mentioned that there are some challenges that you have to anticipate and prepare towards. A lot of the time, I'm sure today some of us went to church, we're praying. Part of it was praying to God to give us health, long life, and prosperity, which is great. We all want to live long, see our children, our grandchildren, probably our great grandchildren. But long life is also expensive, and because the longer you live, the more money you need to survive. So we want to make sure that at a particular point in your life, you are not calling on God to kill you because things have become tough, but you have prepared adequately. So longevity is a retirement challenge. It's a good thing, but it's a retirement challenge that we have to prepare for. Another thing is healthcare cost and long-term care. Unless you work with organizations like maybe Bank of Ghana, VRA, etc., the likelihood that you would have to take charge of your own healthcare expenses is very high. Because for most of us, especially if you are working for somebody, you tend to find out that your employer will be taking care of your cost. Of course, unless you work with a startup or something, but most of the time, the employer will be taking care of your healthcare costs for yourself and then your family. Now, the moment you retire, that benefit ceases and it becomes your problem. And we also know that at that particular stage in life, that's when you even need more health care. So this is something that you have to prepare for. This is something that you may not have on your budget now, but it's something that you definitely need to have on your budget when you go on retirement. Let me also mention long-term care. So you are 80 years, you may not be able to bath yourself like you used to or do certain things like you used to. You will need some support. Have you thought about it? Have you anticipated it? Have you thought about how much it will cost you? How are you preparing for that? Then we have almighty inflation, which is also a challenge because you may be doing your own plans, but if you don't consider inflation, you just get there and realize that whatever plans that you thought you were working on is not going to hold water because of almighty inflation, which is basically when a reduction in the purchasing power, of your money. So that's inflation. So in financial planning, or let me say retirement planning, you consider inflation so that at least you are able to deal with that when you go on retirement. Another issue is low pensions. In Ghana, there's an issue of low pensions, and I'm sure I'll talk more about this as we go along. You see some statistics to prove that pensions in Ghana is low. So if you want to live comfortably, maintain your current lifestyle, or even improve your current lifestyle, is definitely a challenge, and you definitely need to work towards it. Let's talk about volatility. So let's assume that you retired before Mohammed's time, maybe 2013. And when you retired, you had 100,000. And based on this 100,000, when T-bill rates were 25%, you knew that every year you will get your 25, percent, which will come up to roughly, let's say 2,000 a month, and it's okay for you per your plan. Then we later on, interest rates of treasury bills go down as low as between 12 to 13%. Okay, that was in a few years ago, before this year. And that same 100,000 that you were depending on is now going to bring you 1,000 to 2,300 Ghana cedis because of changes in interest rates. So this also can affect the outcome of your retirement. And these are things that we need to think about and plan adequately. Some of them are beyond our control. In fact, most of them are beyond our control, but we can do our best to make sure that we cushion ourselves against any shocks. Now, you see this graph right here is just supposed to let you know what you should be leveraging on to ensure that your retirement is comfortable. So I'm sure a lot of us are more towards the left side. Okay, you start work at 25 years, your human capital, or let me say your ability to earn and save money, is so high. Every month that you earn an income, that human capital diminishes. Now, ideally, once you are saving money month on month, your financial capital should be going up, so that when your human capital diminishes, you can fall back on your financial capital, because now you can no longer trade your time as much as you could when you were younger for money. So now you have financial capital that you are benefiting from. So this is where you benefit from passive income. Now what happens is, if you don't make sure that part of the money you are earning, you are putting aside for tomorrow, you will get to your old age where your human capital is low and your financial capital is also low. And we all know what that is going to look like. There'll be a lot of suffering. So just to encourage you that wherever you find yourself, start leveraging on what you have. Sometimes we think what we have is not enough, but there's a seed in there. So just leverage on what you have, so that eventually when you get to that point in your retirement, you wouldn't regret because you didn't take the best decisions. So now we are going to go into retirement planning proper. But before we start talking about retirement planning, have you ever sat down to think about your own retirement? How do you want it to look like? What are your retirement goals? Are you planning to spend more time with family? Are you planning to travel? We need to start thinking about these things. I am a quite simple person, so honestly, my goal is just to maintain a decent lifestyle, live in a beautiful home, be rich enough to, spoil my grandkids, when they come around, that kind of vibe, and that is my retirement goal. But you can also look at your retirement goal in terms of how much you need to afford the lifestyle that you dream of. So if per this goal I am telling you about, I need 10,000 a month to afford that lifestyle, then that becomes my retirement goal. Now, in looking at how much you need to be able to maintain the desired lifestyle at retirement, and we'll look at what we call the retirement budget. That is basically estimating your budget or how much you think you would spend at retirement to maintain a decent lifestyle. I have a couple of years to retirement, so just guessing how much I may need is maybe difficult, but we can do this by looking at some of these items on the screen right now. First, let's look at housing costs. Are you planning to still be renting? I know everybody in Ghana wants to have their own space, but it's not the case for everyone. Are you planning to still be renting at that time? If the answer is yes, how much is it going to cost you? Are you planning to own your own home? If the answer is yes, it's going to cost you something to maintain that home. It's going to, you definitely pay for electricity, you definitely pay for water, and these are some of the costs that you can start thinking about. And you can do all this. If it's difficult for you to project, you can just talk to somebody that you admire that has retired and just ask them how much they spend on these things. You also look at healthcare costs. We've spoken about your day-to-day living, your food, your clothing, your transportations. All these expenses are things that you should be looking at. How much do you intend? Let's assume you are retired today. How much do you think that if you spent on food, you will be comfortable? If you spent on clothing, you'll be comfortable. If you spent on transportation, entertainment, around your retirement, there's a lot of time. You can decide to be going out with your friends, watching movies, traveling, doing all sorts of things. It's going to cost you money. It's not free. And you need to start thinking about how much would I want to be spending on entertainment, especially if you are extroverted and fun loving and entertainment is really your thing. Then you really need to make sure that you are planning towards this, so that you don't get to that stage in your life and have to stay at home and get depressed because you didn't plan for that stage. Let's look at travel. So I'm told that when you retire, it's the time for going for funerals, because if you don't go for the funerals, nobody will come for yours. I don't know why that really is a bother. I mean, you are dead and gone. But anyway, I guess it won't be nice if only 10 people appear at your funeral. So you have to be going for funerals, which means travel. Okay. So you may be traveling, hotels, flights, if you're driving, all that needs to be taken into consideration. Also, I tend to see that I work with retirees. Maybe I forgot to mention that. I work with retirees a lot. We help them manage their money to last them their retirement. And one thing I've realized is that a lot of people retire having at the back of their minds projects to do, either housing projects, they want to start a new business, they want to purchase a new car. And some of these things are not considered in retirement planning. So what they do is use money that should have been intended for day-to-day living, and use that for these projects. And that is when you start having issues with liquidity. You are living in a huge house, driving a big car, but you don't have money to buy Milo. You don't have money to deal with your healthcare needs. And we don't want to be at that point. So make sure that if you want to build a house, you want to start a business, you are also working towards that as part of your retirement planning. And then anything that you wish to have, any wish list, wants that you wish to have, maybe a golden chair. I don't know why you need that, but let's assume that's what you want to have. All that should be part of your retirement planning. So this will determine this list that I've given you. You can add, you can subtract, will determine how much you would need. You can look at it monthly, you can look at it annually, when you go on retirement, to be able to maintain a decent lifestyle. Now that we've spoken about how much we would need and we've looked at our retirement budget, the next question is, where is that money coming from? Where are we going to get that money from to be able to maintain this lifestyle that we are taking into consideration? In Ghana, we have something called the three-tier pension scheme. And for most of us, especially those of us in the formal sector, a lot of us are relying on this to be able to maintain a decent lifestyle when we go on retirement. So let me just spend a little time talking about what this three-tier pension scheme is and how you can leverage on it to make sure you are comfortable at retirement. So before this new law, it's not a new law. I mean, it's 10 years, more than 10 years now. But before this law took effect, okay, all we knew was that there was SNIT. So you go on retirement, SNIT will give you a lump sum, and then they'll give you a monthly pension. Now, there were some labor agitations because what was happening was that people were retiring poor. Somebody is doing so well, they go on retirement, and then it's as if they never worked. And that is how come you probably saw a lot of people trying to reduce their age. You go to an office, you see some 80-year-old man who says he's less than 60, just so that he can get some stable stream of income. So because of those agitations, there was a three-tier pension scheme that was introduced. Now, under the three-tier pension scheme, let's assume that we have three baskets. So basket one, basket two, basket three. The third basket has two baskets inside. But let's start with basket one. So we still have SNIT anyway. SNIT is still mandatory. So once you are working, especially in the formal sector, your employer has to pay for you. Or if you are the employer, you should be paying for your workers. It's mandatory. It's still managed by SNIT. Now, in the past, 17.5% was going to SNIT. Now it has been reduced to 13.5%. Out of this 13.5%, 11% is towards your pensions, 2.5% is a national health insurance levy. That's why, as a SNIT contributor, if you make that known, you realize that you pay less for national health insurance than the average person. Now, when you go on retirement, SNIT is going to pay you monthly pensions. Okay, they are going to pay you monthly pensions. A lot of the time, sometimes people are broke and they are like, especially during COVID times, people were like, can we get our SNIT? No, it's meant for retirement. However, beyond retirement, there are other benefits like invalidity pensions. So a while back, I learned, I'm sure now maybe it's a shame, but a while back, about a year or two ago, I learned that the youngest retiree was 27, because the person couldn't work anymore and they had to retire. They were certified by a medical practitioner that yes, indeed, we've done our inspection, we've examined this person, he can't work anymore. And once this person has paid their pension contributions for at least 12 months within 36 months of the occurrence that rendered him medically incapacitated, he earns a pension as though he had gone on retirement. So that is a benefit. Then God forbid, should anything happen to you before your retirement, should you pass away, the survivor's lump sum for your beneficiaries. Also, if you're not Ghanaian and you are leaving Ghana for good, that also becomes some money that you can tap into. But if you don't fall in any of these, please wait till your retirement. You can retire early at 55 if you want to. I'll talk about the implications of that as we go along. For those, so I don't know if anybody here was contributing to SNIT or Tier 2 before 2010. But if you were, you earn a pass credit from SNIT, because the new law took effect from 2010. And before that, you should have earned a lump sum and monthly pensions from SNIT. Now they say only monthly pension. So for that period, you earn what we call a pass credit, which is just a small part of your lump sum that will be paid to you. So just in case you were working before 2010, know that you'll be getting some small money from SNIT. And when you check your statement, you should be able to see that money, basically, which represents, as I said in the past, it was 17.5, now 13.5%. So the difference is 4%. So the pass credit represents the 4% that you have paid, the 4% that you have paid it was 50 from the time you paid it. Let's say you started working in 2005, they gave you 50% of the T-bill rates then to 2009. So that becomes your lump sum at the beginning of 2009. That is reinvested at 100% of the T-bill prevailing T-bill rate from 2010 to date. So when you check on your statement, if you were contributing before 2010, you should see some past credits on your statement, and that forms a part of your lump sum. Now, for those of us, for most of us, our lump sum will come from tier 2. In fact, for all of us, I'm sure, our lump sum will come from tier 2. So for the past credit, it's just a part of your lump sum for that period where you were under that old law. So for most of us, our lump sum will come from tier 2. Now, what is tier 2? Basically, 5% of your basic salary that your employer remits to a trustee of choice. Okay, it's also mandatory. So just like your employer pays SSNIT, they are supposed to pay tier 2. Unfortunately, per the statistics, a lot of employers are not paying the tier 2 because SSNIT is a bit more aggressive with prosecuting people. So people just want to make sure that at least they've paid that one. But with the tier 2, a lot of employers are not paying. So there's a likelihood that people will not get their lump sum. So if you find yourself in this situation, try and make sure that try and follow up with your employer to make sure that they are paying. If you are the employer, to try as much as possible to pay for your employees so that they don't struggle at retirement. Now, there are more than 20 licensed trustees. So unlike SSNIT, where it's just SSNIT, wherever you go is SSNIT, here we have different licensed trustees, of which Access is one of them. So you can choose which trustee you want to go to, as in the organization can choose which trustee they want to invest their staff's money in. Some organizations are big enough, so they decide to have their own schemes and their own in-house trustees, but they outsource the day-to-day administration to people like us in Access so that we do that because that's our expertise. When you go on retirement, your tier 2 will give you a lump sum. So that becomes your lump sum when you go on retirement, and it's paid at retirement. So just like the SSNIT, you can't say, I'm broke, I want to start a business, I'm traveling today. No, you can't do that. It's just when you go on retirement. The same conditions I mentioned under SSNIT apply here, just that with the tier 2, if you are 50 unemployed and you can prove that you are unemployed, you go to the labor office to go through their process to show that indeed you are unemployed. They will send something to NPRA, and once you are clear that indeed you are unemployed, you are 50 and you are unemployed, you can access your tier 2 benefits. Then we have the tier 3 baskets. As I said, tier 3 has 2 baskets in there. But let's talk about the entire basket, and then I'll talk about the individual basket. So unlike tier 1 and 2, tier 3 is voluntary. It's also managed by licensed trustees like Access. Now, the government or we are trying to encourage you to save more money because they say we don't like saving. So they are saying that, okay, if you are able to put down money for your pensions, okay, every month, we can allow you to do up to 16.5% of your basic salary before taxes. That means that if you are taking advantage of the tier 3 scheme, your pay as you earn, or PAYE, whichever way you decide to call it, will reduce. And the whole catch here is to encourage people to save towards their retirement so that we can reduce old age poverty. So under the tier 3, we have provident funds, which is employer facilitated. That is, your employer will decide to do it for you. Sometimes we have the employer saying, bring 5%, I'll bring 5%, they match it, they invest the money for you. Sometimes it's just the employees doing it because the employer may not be in that space or may not have the financial, part to be able to do that. Sometimes it's just the employer that is doing it. But at the end of the day, it's in the name of the employer. And the law allows the employer to set vesting rules that guides how exactly the money, like when monies can be withdrawn. So let me give you an example. In Access, our vesting rule says that you can't touch your money until you are leaving the organization. So it's a terminal benefit. So basically forget that you have money because you can't touch it till you are leaving the organization. That differs from company to company. Now, beyond you having access to the money when your vesting rule allows you to, or when you exit your company, you can also use it as a collateral for a loan or even your first residential property, a mortgage facility. You can also use it as a collateral. There are various arrangements available. I'm sure when you are ready to look at that option, we can talk more about it, but that is also something that is on the table. We also have the personal pension, same arrangement. However, here it's your own individual decision to do something on your own towards your retirement, but all the benefits are still the same. So if you realize tier 1 and tier 2, yeah, it's still the lump sum and the monthly pension, but tier 3 is the change maker. And if really you want to enjoy your retirement, you should be looking at a tier 3. Either you are doing a provident fund, you are doing a personal pension, or like me, you are doing both, because we have to retire rich. So let's basically look briefly at how SSNIT calculates their pension so that you can be intentional, especially if you are in a place where you are negotiating salary or you are changing jobs. You can be intentional about how your package is designed. Now let's look at two situations. We have Kwesi Mensah. Okay. Now Kwesi Mensah, in the situation where he's age 55 and he's decided that, you know what, I'm tired, I'm going on retirement. And this is the situation where he's 60. He waited till he's 60 before going on retirement. Now, this guy has worked for 30 years, so SSNIT will take into consideration how long you have contributed for. Now, mind you should have contributed for a minimum of 15 years, 180 months, to earn pensions in Ghana. So if you haven't done the 180 months, this will just give you all the contributions you paid at a percentage of a prevailing T-bill rate, and they are done with you. If you are interested in a monthly income from SSNIT, make sure that at least you have clocked your 180 months. So this guy has done 30 years, so that's 360 months, okay? And his terminal salary is 1,005. Now, SSNIT takes into consideration three factors when they are calculating your pension. They look at the average of your best 3 years salary. So for this guy, his best year was 18,000, second best year 16,200, third best year 14,000. So when you add that and you average it, that's 16,260. Remember that when he retired, his best salary was 18,000. So through the averaging process, it's reduced, assuming that your best salary was the last salary you earned before you went on retirement. However, if your salary reduced, maybe you change jobs, your salary reduced, they'll still use your best 3 years salary. So that's just by the way. Okay. Another thing they'll use is, as I said, how long you have contributed to SSNIT. So as I said, the first 15 years earn you pensions, you earn pensions, but there's something called pension rights, or your right to pensions. Once you've done the minimum 15 years, you have a right to pensions of 37.5%. Every additional year you do, you get an additional 1.125%. The maximum that you can get is 60%, and that is for contributing for 35 years plus. Okay, so this guy had done 30 years. So when you take a 37.5% for the first 15 years, and then you multiply 15 times 1.125% for the next 15 years, and you add it, you get 54%. And that is this Mr. Mensah's pension right. So they are going to multiply the pension right by the average of the best 3 years salary. Now, another factor is what we call the age reduction factor. Now, if you retire at 60, that means full pensions. You earn a full pension. So the age reduction factor is what? 1. Every number multiplied by 1 is that number. So 54% times 16,000 times 1. Okay, and that becomes your annual pension. So to get your monthly pensions, you just divide your annual pension by 12. Then, but let's look at the situation where you decide that you are retiring at 55, all things being equal. You are retiring at 55. you realize that Mr. Mensah is taking less money. Why? Because here the age reduction factor, he didn't retire at 60, he didn't earn a full pension. So instead of the factor being 1, it's 0.60, or let me say 60%. He's going to earn 60% of what he should have earned if he had stayed until 60. So first of all, you can see that 54% times, when we do the calculation, he will end up with 736 Ghana cedis. He was taking 1,500, but he's ending up with 736 Ghana cedis. And we can see that there's a shortfall. Now, remember that if, let's assume that his terminal salary was 1,005, like we see it there. If his take home was anything near the 1,005, then that's cool. But if his take home was 3,000 and his basic salary was 1,005, remember that SSNIT takes into consideration your basic salary, then the shortfall is going to be so huge. So there's definitely going to be a shortfall, but the shortfall, the magnitude of the shortfall is dependent on what your basic salary is. Is it significantly smaller than your take home, or is it close to your take home? If it's close to your take home, then there'll be a shortfall, but it may be just about, let's say, 50%. But if it's significantly lower than your take home, then the gap is going to be really huge, and it's something that you even need to take into consideration. That's why I said that when you are looking for a job, or you have the opportunity to negotiate your salary, make sure that your basic is decent enough that at least even if you get 50% or 60% of that basic, you can manage. The second lesson here is that if you haven't done any planning towards your retirement and you are just going because you are tired, unless it's a health issue, make sure you do the full 60. Otherwise, forget about early retirement. If you are considering early retirement, your pensions is going to go down drastically. You can see that just because he retired at 55, he's now taking 442. So if you find yourself in this place, or you want to retire early, just make sure that you are planning towards that. Beyond SSNIT, tier 2, tier 3, there are different things that people may tap into. There's business, and I always advise that if you want to do a business that you will fall back on at retirement, try and start before retirement. At least if you fall on your salary or some kind of cushion, rather than waiting and using your lump sum for cha-cha. If it doesn't go well, you are in trouble. And I've seen some of these things happen. So make sure that you start it, you make your mistakes, you build on it. So by the time you go on retirement, even if you have to scale the business, you know what you are doing. The second basket is rental income. In Ghana, a lot of us like rental income. We all want to be landlords and landladies, but it's not as straightforward. I remember I have a real estate friend who is always telling me that it's not what it seems to be like. And recently I was talking to someone, another finance professional, and was telling me that his wife wanted to invest in property because normally it's sentimental, for us. And so they sat down and did the analysis. He sat down with her and did the analysis, and it was going to take 45 years for her to break even. So rental income doesn't mean go and just build anywhere and rent. It may take you forever to get your money back. So it's very important that if rent is something that you are looking into, if you can engage a professional to do some analysis for you to make sure that you are investing and it's not sentimental. And when it comes to rental income, we say location, location, location. That wherever you are putting that property is a good enough location to give you decent returns. Also remember that with rental income, if the property is not occupied, you are also not getting your money. So don't put all your eggs in that one basket. Make sure that you are diversifying. Have some investments, some financial assets, have some rental assets, have something, because there are people who have so many properties, but if they are to have an emergency right now, they'll find themselves wondering because they are not liquid enough. Then we have children and family. as much as possible, especially if you're a Bible believing person. We know that they said a good man leaves an inheritance for his children and his children's children, or a good woman, whichever way you decide to see it. So we really don't want to depend on our children when we go on retirement, especially because in Africa we deal with what we call black tax, where the older generation is a burden on the younger generation, so they are not able to create wealth and pass it on to the next generation. So you come to this world and you come to start from scratch as if your parents never worked, and you are doing the same to your kids, and they have to come and start from scratch. Whereas in the developing countries, people are building on what their parents did, so that they can pass on generational wealth. So this is something that I try to preach against. If your children are doing well and they decide to bring you money because you were a very nice parent, fine. But you shouldn't be calling your children me light song, me milk song, me milo song. I don't think that is, especially in these times where it's tough for everybody. I think it will be good for you to plan to take care of yourself, and anything that comes is an addition to you. Well, we've spoken about the budget, how much you would need. We've spoken about where the monies will be coming from. What is the reality on the ground? According to SNIT data, 50% of retirees, this is as of 2019, were taking 600 Ghana cedis or less. 78% were taking 1,000 Ghana cedis, and just 1% was taking 5,000. But if I even give you 5,000, I'm sure it won't be enough for you. Me, 5,000 is not enough for me. So I'm sure it may not be enough for you. In 2020, it improved slightly, and 53% of retirees were taking 1,000. And this is, even with this, just less than 15% of people 60 years and above in Ghana earn pensions. So the rest of them, you know that they are falling back on their kids or maybe a business if they are fortunate. But most people 60 years and above don't even have any form of pensions. There's statistics from the Ghana Statistical Service that says that 60% of people 60 years and above in Ghana have to continue to work to meet their basic needs. And a lot of them are into into the small scale farming, just so that they get something to be able to eat. So this situation is serious, and we want to make sure that as much as possible, we do our best to avoid old age poverty. So that is the SNIT statistics. And even in the case where you decide to invest your tier 2 and decide that your tier 2 should be bringing you some income, even with that, even if you did the maximum 35 years, SNIT may replace your income by 60%. Your tier 2, if you put it in an investment that is bringing you roughly 14% a month, and you even put in some sort of annuity plan, it will bring you 86%. So are you able to live off 86% of your basic salary? If the answer is no, then the question is that you need to do something beyond your tier 2. So how much really is enough? Globally, financial planners say that 70 to 80% of your pre-retirement income should be enough for you when you're going on retirement. So if I'm earning 2,000 right now and I'm going on retirement tomorrow, they are saying that between 1,004 and 1,600 Ghana cedis should be enough for me. That's globally. And we know that outside there are more nuclear family centered, obi drain a whole sort of vibe. I don't think you need to go for all these funerals so that people will come for yours, like there is in Ghana. So in Ghana, because of our socio-cultural setting, the fact that you will be on retirement, but you probably still be taking care of family, they probably make you some ebusiapin or whatever. And the way our system works, we are recommended to make sure that we replace our income at least by 100%. What that means is that if I was taking 5,000 Ghana cedis today, let me work towards taking at least that 5,000 Ghana cedis tomorrow to be able to maintain a decent lifestyle. And this statistics or this recommendation was by a pension, one pension expert who was involved in the three-tiered pension scheme, the creation of the three-tiered pension scheme. So I would like all of us to, at least, even if we don't have an idea about how much exactly we need when we go on retirement, just look at what you earn right now. Are you comfortable? If the answer is yes, let's target 100% of that. If the answer is no, what are you comfortable with? Let's target 100% of that. Now, we've spoken a lot. I'm sure that you are wondering, okay, where am I on this journey? Because this is general information. So for those of you who want to know where you are on this journey, the great news is that there's a pension calculator. So as Jemima said, I work with Axis Pension. So you can just go on our website or just write this link somewhere, copy it, and go and put all your SNITs, the number of months you've contributed to SNIT, your basic salary, your tier 2 balance, all that. It will be able to tell you whether you are going to retire comfortably or there's a gap. If there's a gap, you know what to do. If you are in a good position, to good news, you can sleep well at night. If you want to try this calculator, maybe it's too technical for you, need assistance, you can reach us or you can reach me. I'll share my number at the end of the session so that I can help you. I've had people, especially those who have provident funds and personal pensions, when they put it in the system, it really looks good, especially for those of us who are young or have a good enough time, maybe some 25 years and above to go on retirement, and you have a provident fund and tier 2, you realize that it's looking good. It's not bad. But what I've realized that for those who have a shorter time to retire, who also don't have a tier 3, I was working on one for somebody who had to, well, his retirement goal was quite high. He wanted to earn double of what he's earning now. And he had just 10 years to retire. So the calculator was telling him that he has to save 3,000 Ghana cedis a month. And there's somebody who earns 4,000 Ghana cedis. So you can tell how it's looking. So when you put your stuff into the calculator, and whatever it tells you, if there's a need to work towards it, just do your best to do something to bridge that gap. So how do you bridge the gap, which is the question? Number one, max out your retirement savings options. I've spoken about tier 1 and tier 2. That one, please, 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 make sure your employer is doing it for you. Be checking your statements. Don't just assume that it's being done for you. There are even multinationals that they are contributing for their workers, all right, but for some reason, due to some operational issues, it's not reflecting on the employee statement. So make sure that you are doing your checks. Your employer is paying for you. If you're an employer, also make sure you are paying for yourself and then your staff. So beyond the tier 1 and tier 2, there's also a 16.5% tax savings opportunity to invest in your towards your retirement, reduce your taxes, and also save for the future. Make sure that you take advantage of that 16.5%. When you add SNIT tier 2, tier 3, that's a whole 35% of your basic salary that you are putting down towards your retirement, and you are saving on taxes just by taking advantage of that. Beyond that, if you can also do an extra 10% towards your retirement, that is great. If you can, just take advantage of it. Now, I'm sure you are wondering, what is emergency fund doing when we are talking about retirement planning? What I've realized is that if you don't have an emergency fund, you don't have liquidity, you are likely to come and tap into your retirement fund for all sorts of weird reasons, like your car is spoiled, you have to have a sit birthday party for your child and all sorts of things. So have an emergency fund to deal with your emergencies. Have sinking funds to deal with some future expenses that you are working on, so that you can leave your retirement funds to do what they are supposed to do. Make sure that you are comfortable at retirement. Plan for capital expenses. You want to buy a car in the next 5 years, plan for it. You want to build in the next 10 years, plan for it, so that as much as possible, I know this can be difficult, but as much as possible, you don't touch your pension or your retirement money. Because you see a lot. I remember years ago, someone, I don't even know how this person got my number, but he called me that, he's putting his withdrawal request. I should follow up. He was so eager to get the money. So in my mind, I thought that, oh, this must be some huge money that, this guy really needs to solve a problem. Just to follow up and find out that it was 4,000 Ghana cedis at retirement. So my question was, what happened? And I was told that their employer allows them to withdraw every year. So he was left with 4,000 Ghana cedis. And there are people I've heard that even call us at Access to tell us that we should take our retirement more seriously. So as much as possible, let's try and have a financial plan so that your retirement plan is for your retirement. Also, if you say that, okay, I need 10,000 with 10,000 Ghana cedis, I'll be comfortable. And you are retiring in the next 10 years and you are planning with 10,000, sister, you are not planning well. Consider inflation, consider average inflation, not the high inflation that we are seeing right now. Just look at the trends over the past 10 years, 20 years. Consider average inflation and use it to plan. Consider healthcare costs, consider longevity. What if you live to 100 years? Are you going to survive or you are going to be begging to die? As your income improves, and I pray that everybody here income improves, that you increase your contribution, especially with the personal pension, because with personal pension, normally you would say, oh, I'll do 100, I'll do 50, I'll do 200. So there's no, unlike the other contributions, which is a percentage of your income, this one is more fixed. So you are likely to just forget about it. So as your income increases, improve your contributions, because remember that your tastes may also be changing, your goals may also change as you go along. So make sure you are increasing it to also take care of inflation, to also deal with inflation. I've also already mentioned that avoid withdrawing as much as possible from your retirement savings. I know this is difficult, but as much as possible. And then I've also mentioned that monitor your pensions. Please, I remember there was a retiree who he retired with 600,000. Honestly, if you compare it to the average retiree in Ghana, that is great. But he wasn't satisfied because, according to him, he a colleague of his who he thinks they were on the same level retired with 1 million. So why is he taking 600,000? He wouldn't have been surprised if he was checking his statement and he knew that this is where I am. So let's be checking our statement to know where we are, and also to make sure that our employers are paying our contributions, our employers, and it's the right amount at the right time, and it's the right amount. Because with tier 2 and tier 3, I forgot to mention, it's a pure investment. Whatever you contribute plus your investment gains or losses is what you are taking home. So time value of money is important. When that money is paid and supported, with tier 1, it's an insurance, so it may not really matter. Even though SNIT will penalize the employer if they don't pay by 14th of the ensuing month, but with tier 2, it's important because any time you lose, you are losing money. You've done after all the talking, you've realized that, Charlie, I'm behind. I need to start getting serious with my retirement. Start now. Sometimes you realize that, like the guy I mentioned, maybe you need to put in more effort because you waited till it was too late. But for me, it's always better. Maybe you are supposed to do 3,000 a month, which is a lot. It's always better to at least start and do 500 Ghana cedis, and as time goes on, see what you can do, rather than just throw the goal somewhere because it's saying 3,000 and then you don't have that money. So whatever it is, start now. And as you start thinking strategically about how you can bridge the gap. You need to reduce your goals. Maybe you are thinking 10,000. You need to start thinking about maybe how I can survive with 5,000. If still you want the 10,000, is there any way you can generate income, extra income, so that you can save as much to bridge the gap, or you can invest in something to be able to bridge the gap? So these are things that we need to start thinking about so that we can strategically position ourselves well for a comfortable retirement. Last but not the least, I just want to touch on how little contributions, especially if you have a good enough time, can go a long way to give you a comfortable retirement. So let's assume that you are 30 years. I don't know what the average age is here. Let me use 35. Okay. So let's assume you are 35 years and you can do 500 Ghana, or let me even say 200 Ghana cedis monthly for the next 25 years. At least you retire with 1.1 million. I'm sure you are saying 1.1 million, and here, how much is that? Remember that the 1.1 million basically is about 72,000 Ghana cedis that you have invested. The rest is the rest. Sorry, I'm using the 30 years. Sorry. So the 25 years times the 200 times 12. I don't know who can calculate that for me, but that is what you have invested, which is very insignificant compared to the interest on it. So as you go along to deal with inflation, I said that don't keep it at 200 cedis. Always make sure that you are topping up so that you can have more than that 1.14 million in your account when you go on retirement. I have done my retirement budget. I noticed I need about 40 million extra saved, apart from my expense and all that, 40 million extra saved. I checked my tier 2, my tier 3, and my provident fund, and I'm on course if I don't stop at a point. So these are some of the things that you need to do to make sure that you bridge the gap. Last but not the least, wrapping up, beyond money, make sure that you are eating well, drinking water, exercising, staying active, so that you don't get to retirement with all sorts of diseases and spending so much on health care. So make sure that you are taking care of your mental health. If you are tired, relax a bit. I'm talking to myself. Also start thinking about funds that you are setting aside for your health care. Start looking at health insurance at retirement. Also social life. This is very important at retirement, because we work now, a lot of the time, in fact, you are so busy that you don't even realize that you don't have a social life. But when you go on retirement, the kids are old enough, they are out there, you are not really working, you realize that you are lonely, and you realize that if you had built strong relationships and healthy relationships, you could have leveraged on that. So this is something I have picked from retirees that I've spoken to. The importance of building strong and healthy relationship with your spouse, friends, and family, so that when you are old, you invested in those relationships, so they'll want to be around you. But if you weren't nice, it's going to be a very lonely retirement. Also, Old Students Association. I'm talking to myself because I don't do that well at all. Retirees Association, any group that you can start building some kind of relationship with, that would come in handy at retirement, so that you still have a community. It's very important. Religious groups. I've spoken about accommodation. Do you want to own a house? It has its implication. Do you want to rent? It has its implication. Do you want to live with family? It has its nuances. All that is something that you need to start thinking about and psyching yourself. Another thing that retirees also have mentioned to me is the need to start thinking about what you want to do when you go on retirement. Okay, so my mom, she's very introverted, but she's managed to engage her. She's now an intercessor. That's her occupation. She intercedes for people, and she organizes all sorts of prayer meetings, and that's how she is occupying herself. Other people can have hobbies, businesses, consulting that they are doing just to engage. A doctor says that at that stage in your life, you still need to be engaging your brain. Otherwise, you'll be prone to all sorts of memory loss and all sorts of diseases. Okay, so you still need to be, so before retirement, you need to start thinking, what do I want to do with this period of my life? Don't get there and now be wondering what to do with your life. Start planning for it. Mentoring. You have so much knowledge. You have so much you've done over these years. It's time to give back. Start putting in place. And there's a lady I know who works in a bank that has a group for market women. She worked in the SME space in the bank, so she was able to gather some market women and that alone is work for her, helping them with their financing needs and other tips and tricks they will need to succeed. And that is what she's doing, and that alone is enough to engage her. Contract work, partial employment, there are people with some skill set and they still need you to be working at least for a while. That's also another way to engage yourself. Family support, you pick your grandkids from school, you are helping your children with their grandkids, and they say that when you're around kids, it also helps you to be youthful. It's all helpful. Religious activities, you've now become a pastor, you've gone on retirement or a counselor or something of that sort. And then I also know people who have gone on retirement and are in school. I wouldn't do that, but other people are doing it. So it's something that you can think about. In summary, the result of your retirement planning will be based on how long you save, because the longer you save, the better. How much you save, the more you save, the better. How much return you achieve to keep your savings safe. This one is true. I would have said the more returns, the better. But we know that high risk, high reward, right? So when the returns are too high, you also have to be careful. But at least it should be decent enough. When you retire, I mentioned that the implication of early retirement and retiring at 60. So if you haven't planned for your retirement, make sure that you are putting in place a plan, or make sure you wait till 60 to retire. How much income you seek. If I need 2,000 Ghana cedis to be comfortable, the effort I'll need to put in will be different from someone who needs 10,000 Ghana cedis to be comfortable. And we are all not the same. So how much income you need would also influence your retirement plan and how long you live. If you are just going to live 5 years after 60, unfortunately we don't know that, but assuming we knew, you won't need to put in as much effort as somebody who is living for 30 years after retirement. Then inflation and healthcare costs. So this just to touch briefly on what Axis does. Axis manages Tier 2 and Tier 3 pensions. We also have personal pension schemes for individuals. So if you're interested in a personal pension plan, you can just hit us up. If you're interested in Provident Fund or Tier 2, you can also hit us up. We also have advisory services, including an Axis retirement annuity plan. That's why I said I speak to a lot of retirees, because this is a product that I manage. And workplace retirement. So what I'm doing for you today, we do that and it's for free. So if you're interested, just hit us up. I think I'm done. Yes. Thank you so much, and I'll take your questions.
Thanks, Mimi. I guess you took us through a 60-year trip down to retirement, and we really appreciate the presentation. Pardon us, today we had exceeded our 7 o'clock timelines. So we'll take question. No, don't worry. You took us through a whole journey. So Teteayi, before I come, there was one question in the chat. If you have any question, you could put it in the chat or you raise your hand. So Cyril wants to know, how much would you say is a decent basic salary?
So this is very relative. Decent for me may be 10,000, but I remember a retiree. I called a retiree and he told me he's getting 11,000 from SNIT and it's peanuts. I'm like, whoa. So it's it's very relative. It depends on you. But what I'll say is that your basic salary, if you were earning that as your take home, is it something that you are comfortable with? Because remember that you'll be getting from SNIT a percentage of your basic salary, not more than 60%. So the question you should ask yourself is it decent enough for you? If your answer is yes, then that's fine. But some employers would normally consolidate the salaries, especially these multinationals, so that their employees would have a good pensions. So I checked I realized that my basic salary was close to my take home, so I'm cool. I know that it's not too far from what I'm used to. Yeah, so it's relative, but just make sure that it's not too far from your take home, because that's when the shock is mega.
Thanks, Mimi. So just to add to it, most people are concerned about the take home. So most negotiations are made on allowances, which don't affect your basic. So the key call out here is in negotiation, push for more basic and leave the allowances. So even if you have allowances in it, negotiate for it to be added to your basic. It will affect your SNIT, to affect your tier 2, to affect your tier 3 as well. Okay, so Titi, you can unmute and ask your question.
Yes, thank you, Jemima, and thanks to you, Mimi. Listen, you said something about, or rather, you spoke about a lot of things. But one thing that interests me most is the health, because when you're working and active, even when you have some ache somewhere, you even don't notice. And when you have a lot of time and nothing to do, you tend to focus on your pains and your aches and all that, and then you need high maintenance costs. So now, isn't Axis planning to have, because I'm working somewhere and I've been there for this long because it was only one of the few places that they had medical insurance for retirees.
Okay.
It was just pulled out 4 years ago. So then I realized that, look, I shot myself in the foot. So now it is very, very important because I know how it is. My parents, my father used to be at Mobil Oil. They've been looking after them very well. Even now, he's about 85, 86. They look after my parents. And if it wasn't for that, trust me, the things that I'm doing for my children, I wouldn't have done half because it's a lot of concern.
Yeah.
Isn't Axis going to come up with something so that we throw in some investments as far as that is concerned, so that we'll be able to live?
I think that will have to be done in partnership with some of these health insurance organizations. I know of Nationwide that had rolled out something of that sort where you can start putting aside something so that eventually when you retire, you have access to a health insurance, because when you retire, they are not interested in you because you are too risky. So while you're young, you put something aside so that eventually when you retire. But these are new products coming into the space. So there'll be a lot of partnerships going forward to be able to have something that is more holistic. But while that is yet to be fully taken advantage of, I'll just advise that you do something on your own. And I think that your plan to stay where you are, hopefully everything else is good, but your plan to stay where you are is actually part of retirement planning, because you're thinking about that aspect. Because I remember when my mom went on retirement, not too long after, she had to do something with her on her eye, and that alone was 18,000 gone. So that is definitely part of retirement planning, assuming the other things are covered. You are growing in the space and all that, but it's definitely something. That doesn't mean that we should all go and hide in VRA, GPHA, and those places that, provide those kind of things. But it's just something that we should think about as very important and when we are going on. But I'm sure as the industry grows, because we are still relatively new, there'll be a lot of collaborations. Now we've seen some collaborations from Axis between us and a life insurance company, so that when people pass on, even if they weren't able to do so much, there's some support from insurance, and then there are benefits too. So as time goes on, we'll see a lot more collaborations, but the industry is still quite young. So I'm sure these are things that we'll look into. Personally, it's something that I'm interested in seeing happen.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
I hope it's sooner than later, Mimi.
Yes, I hope so too.
Okay, so looking at the time we have, we'll take the last question, which I had received from one of the participants. For the rest, Mimi will make her number available I'm also available on all the social media network, Finance Gem. If you have any question, you could pass it through. So Mimi, the question is, for most of the young generation, this is one of my audience who had changed jobs. So currently he has changed 3 jobs, and he happens to have his tier 2 with 2 different pensions company. So the first one, about 8 years with one. The second and the third happens to have the same pension company, but different employers. At what point should he or she consolidate the tier 2? Should the person wait till ready for retirement, or we need to consolidate the tier 2 now?
Okay, so I think that it depends on the individual. There are people who probably, let's say they worked in 2 places, they have their tier 2 with one company, but they really like that company services, and they've moved to another company. The services are okay, but they really like this company, so they'll rather prefer to have part of their money there deliberately and another part of their money in that organization. It's no problem. Once you know that your money is here and your money is there, and you go on retirement and you are prepared to go through those processes with the different organizations involved to get your money, no problem. But for a chunk of us, we don't even know like who the money is with. We can't remember, like there are a lot of things people don't remember when it comes to their pensions, like they are just going. So normally what we advise, okay, especially if you are going to do a lot of job switches, is that as you go, you port your money. So you are moving from a company that is with Enterprise Trustees, and you are moving to a company that's managed with Axis. Move your tier 2 from Enterprise to Axis. And then if you are moving from Axis to whatever other employer, you move from Axis to that place. In doing that, when you go on retirement, you have to deal just with SNIT and then with Axis. If you have, some employers have their tier 3 with different trustees. So let's assume it's even a different trustee. You have 3 people to deal with. Okay. But where you have moved 10 times and there are 10 different trustees, you have to go to each one of them, go through their processes to be able to get your money. So I think it depends on you. Me, I like convenience. So definitely, either I keep 2, or as I move along with the money. I don't think you should keep more than 2 or 3 trustees. I think that's a lot. Because remember that there are more than 20 of them. So there's a high potential that your money will be all over the place.
Thanks, Mimi. So I think Alan had put a suggestion about the building for rental income. You can also build few years to retirement and sell for liquidation. You don't have to recoup all your investments through rental.
Yes, and even with this strategy, is, as I said, it's good to talk to an expert, because some people have built their house with an assumption that it's worth a certain amount, and the market thinks otherwise. So you see the house sitting there for all sorts of years. When you talk to an expert, they'll let you know the situation on the ground, and then you know how to position, yours. Because people are making a lot of money from the space, but the difference is whether you have enough knowledge to be able to make the most out of that investment.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mimi. Thank you, everyone. And pardon us for keeping you for over 18 minutes. Just a little reminder, you can follow our YouTube channel for all the recorded versions, including what we have just had. You have the full session uploaded so that in case you need to refer to it, you can. You can also follow the Finance Gem, #FinanceGem on all social media handles. And there's this addition. We have gone local as well on radio, Rainbow Radio on Mondays, 87.5 FM. We have the session 4 to 4:30, and that is in local language, which is Twi for now. Thank you all for the support, and then have a fruitful week. Thanks, Mimi.